Thank you very much for the invitation as well. Hi. Thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. First question, who of you is a designer? No, that's quite some. Who of you is a developer? Oh, that's even more. Who of you has nothing to do with design and development and decided to come anyways? Yeah, cool, welcome. Nice that you're here. So, my name is Jo. I'm a designer. I worked in mobile games, as Henrik just said, for 7 years. I'm working on marketing games, working on creating user experiences. Aside from that, I founded my own design studio, my own design collective, working on side projects like apps, like physical projects, like movies. You know what, before I tell you what I'm doing, I can actually show you. Yeah, so some of my works. In the beginning of this year, I founded a experience design studio called Human Deluxe, and we make on-screen and off-screen experience designs, web designs, app designs. We help companies to find the right name. We create brand systems, logo systems, brand designs, help people to create packages for successful go-to-market, fix problems on existing products, and yeah, of course, we share our knowledge, helping companies with design thinking, design sprints, techniques like that. And what we do is we help companies to create irresistible experiences. And the question is, how can you create an irresistible digital product? And this is what my talk today will be about. And actually, this is more important than ever. So as I'm speaking here right now, there is over 1.34 billion websites, digital products live. So that's 1.3 billion social networks, apps, banking systems, landing pages, web apps, all of that online. And all of them are battling for our attention, all of them battling for time to spend on them. And the question is, how can we stand out? And also the question is, like, why are we still spending so much time on the big guys? Why are we always on the same sites? Why are we watching Casey Neistat drink coffee on YouTube? Why do we check out Kim Kardashian stories on Instagram still, or pop candies, or splash jellies, or Clash Our Clans? So why is it? And why can't we resist the big guys? And can we even transfer some of these learnings from the big guys on our own products? And yeah, of course, you can argue the big guys, I mean, they have the big data. They measure retention. They optimize for session lengths. They look into daily active users and optimize for that. But while irresistible products, while irresistible experiences seem like a numbers game at first, the question is, what kind of impact can design have? Does that even have an impact? Is that even important, really? And I think yes, the answer is yes, of course. And during my time working with these numbers, looking at these dashboards for 7 years now, I think I have some learnings, actually. So I have 7 learnings I brought you today, and of course I want to share them with you. So the first learning is focusing on core human needs. And the most important core human need is curiosity. So this is actually one of the most powerful core human attributes, actually. So we want to learn, we want to discover, we have an urge, we have a natural desire to learn about new things. And companies like InVision, for example, they know that. So on their homepage, on their landing page, instead of just showing them their product right away, instead of showing us screenshots of what their software looks like, they show us the result, the effect that you can reach with their product. And they make us curious. They try to pull us in. Successful and irresistible experiences create like a whole lifestyle world, like the Epicureans conference by Dan Paddy. They built a whole lifestyle around the conference instead of just going to the dates and going to the speakers directly. Or design companies or physical product companies like Bang & Olufsen, instead of just showing us their full, really cool, awesome design speaker, they just show us a tiny bit and they make us curious and they make us want to scroll and to see the whole thing. And yeah, we love surprises. We love to be surprised as human beings. And that's not only on big scale, but also in the tiny details. I don't know if you remember this app, Clear. Anyone ever used that? Yeah? Oh yeah, that's quite a lot. So you might remember, besides the really cool and really minimal design, you had this event when you would complete your list, you would get this. So this is a random quote from some famous person about being productive or finishing things. And this would always change, so you would never know what to expect, and you would always be surprised with this little quote after you finished a list. Very similar to this is Mailbox. So Mailbox unfortunately discontinued after it was purchased by Dropbox. They had this concept of inbox zero. So basically cleaning your inbox on a daily level. Who does it? Who cleans their inbox? Are you successful? Do you get to it every day? That's awesome. I couldn't do that. Like I have 20,000 emails or so in my inbox. But if you do, you would get in Mailbox, you would get this daily curated picture. And that was something for people to look forward to and to be surprised and like get to see just a simple image, and which is a really tiny detail. I can Google this image myself. But after cleaning out my inbox, getting this surprise, this is something that really strives with the users. And also the little ones, like this little scissor here on the bottom of the Kickstarter footer. When you click it, it moves, and then in the end, well, I don't tell you what happens. You have to find out yourself. So this is about the surprises, about the little things. But just curiosity and surprises, that's not all. Much more important is actually building trust. I mean, we just heard it with Kat's talk, that trust is an important thing with brands, especially when we trust them with our money. How can we trust a brand? And I have an example. So this is actually a website I've been working on. This is a cryptocurrency startup called Envion. And they built this cryptocurrency hardware that made it easy and cheaper to mine Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever. And the question is, they want people basically to give them money to build their product. So they had an ICO, an initial coin offering. But how can people trust this random website on the internet that just went live? How can people trust this website to invest in them, to give them money? And what we did is actually quite simple. So we put, in the team section, we put pictures and names and little stories about everyone who is a part of this company and telling them the whole story of the company, how it came to be, what the motivation is, and showing them, hey, this is a real company. This is not just a random website on the internet, but this is real people who you can approach, who you can add on LinkedIn, who you can get in contact with. And for Envion, it was quite successful. So they raised over 100 million US dollar, making it the 6th biggest ICO in history so far, which I guess is pretty successful. And this is all down to trust. There's other examples. So this website is a DSL provider, EasyBell. It's not the biggest provider, and it's also not the prettiest website. Actually, it's quite, well, it's special. But they do something very right on their front page. And this is this section here on the top right corner, where you have all these badges where they scored first place, like quality seals and all that stuff, which tells people, hey, somebody thinks our product is actually really good. And in addition to that, they offer right on the front page in the first viewport, they offer a phone number where you can reach them. And not just like a random 1-800 number, but a Berlin landline. So I get the feeling when I visit this DSL provider, oh yeah, I can reach those guys. So in case something goes wrong or I have a question, it's actually easy, they are easy to approach. And this builds trust. Easy to approach. This is this little intercom icon, which you will find on so many websites these days in the bottom right corner. Almost nobody really uses them, but just the sheer presence of it, the fact that it's there, gives me this confidence and gives me this feeling of, oh yeah, if I have a question, I can approach someone, and yeah, I can ask someone. And this can be a really powerful tool if you execute it right. And with right, I mean not like these guys. So they have this chat pop-up right on the main content, which I guess is a pretty stupid placement, but whoever decided that. Learning number 3, being responsive. So being responsive does not mean having your website or app work on both mobile, tablet, and desktop. No, it means being aware of the context of action it happens in, and meaning that you have to be interactive and that you have to give users feedback. So here is an example from material design. Giving people something to touch and giving them feedback in the moment they tap, they hit, they click, or they scroll something makes the experience not only so much more fun to use, but will also result in a much more repeated and much more often times being used. And this is actually quite an important part of creating an irresistible and delightful experience. And this is not only for big animations like in here, but it's also in the tiny little details that you almost don't notice, but when you find them, you will enjoy them so much and you will use them so much that they create a completely different experience for you. I can show you my top 3 little interactive feedback details, actually. So this one, some of you might have encountered this on Airbnb when you try to rent a flat in a city and you don't know like what's the price there. On top of the little price range slider, they show you this chart which shows you what's the usual or how many apartments do I have in this cost range in that city, in that area. And that makes it so easy for me to figure out what kind of or what amount of money should I spend or take into account to find a good place in the town. Another example is of the old medium fav icon. So they have this tiny space of 16 by 16 pixels, which they use to tell you if you are reading an article on Medium or if you're actually writing one, so if you're in the draft mode. And that tiny little detail comes in so handy if you are a heavy Medium user, if you're writing a lot on Medium and if you have a lot of tabs open. So you would always find the right one. My favorite example probably is these 4 dots. So this is an interface element created for Google by this also. And just with these 4 dots and a little bit of movement, they give you so much feedback on what is the system actually doing right now. How does it react to the user input? And am I doing something wrong or is something going right? So this is an amazing example of like just a tiny little interface that is just 4 dots. And yeah, these 4 dots just due to their animation, due to their behavior, almost feel like a personal experience, like a human experience. And this is learning number 4, have a personality. So great irresistible experiences have a personality. With having a personality, I don't mean that they have a mascot or something. They don't need to have a freaking gorilla on their homepage that talks to you or a butler that do the searches for you. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is a personality where an app or a product speaks to you like a human being, where it speaks to you like a friend, like a peer, where it has edges, where it is distinctive, where it maybe swears a bit as well. This is an example from an app that is a bit older called Authentic Weather by Tobias von Schneider. And just by speaking out what we feel about the weather, it creates this bond and it creates this connection with the user. And this responsiveness, this connection, especially when it doesn't get in the way of the user, but where it relates, like this sign-up form that greets me, that says, "Hi, Brian, nice to meet you." This is so tiny, but it already makes it easy to relate, and which helps to motivate people to keep using the product. And a lot of this goes down to tonality. So to the question, how does the product speak to the user, and how does my behavior change when I speak or when the product speaks with the user? Kat had a really amazing example about that, actually, with a green text that would just speak to me in a different way than my old banking website that I've known from the 90s would. And I have a great example, actually, which is a bit of a scientific example, which comes from the designer Dustin Curtis. So Dustin Curtis at some point decided, I want to have more followers on Twitter. So he had this little Twitter link in his website footer, and he tried to use different text on the Twitter link. So at first he was like, hey, I'm on Twitter. And then he changed it to follow me on Twitter, so having a more instructional text there. And then he changed it to, you should follow me on Twitter. And finally, you should follow me on Twitter here, changing the tonality from passive to more active and to finally very instructional. And this really helped increasing his following on Twitter and helped to increase click-through rate on that link. A company that does that extremely well is MailChimp. MailChimp, they do not only have a style guide for their visuals, but they would have a whole style guide on voiceandtone.com that is only dedicated to the question, how do we speak to our users in the different situations that they are in? So how do we speak to a user when he made something right? How do we speak to a user if we fucked up? How do we speak to a user when he has to pay something? Whatever. So they have these feelings, these users' feelings, and transform this into a certain tonality that they should speak to the user in. And this really, really helps to create a very distinct and very personal feeling with the product they have. But just having a personality or just having a right tonality doesn't help. So learning number 5, you need to know where you want to go. Just like Dustin Curtis knew, I want to have more followers on Twitter, you need to have a goal, basically. And the question is, what can your goal be? So a goal can be something very different. This can be like, I want people to read my text. Or this can be, I want to sell something to people. I want people to sign up for something. Or it can be, I want people to perform a complex operation in a very successful way, and in best case, in a very repeated manner. So I want people to come back and perform this complex operation over and over. Let me give you an example. So if you have a goal, actually, you can figure out a way how to get there. And I had that challenge when I created a magazine for the iPad in 2011, the Aside magazine. What I wanted to do is create, just with web technologies, a really magazine-like experience on the iPad that didn't feel like a website, that didn't feel like an app, but like a magazine. And what's the core of a magazine? Of course, it's the content. So in magazines, you have texts, and you want people to read this text. So that was my challenge. How can I get people to read this? And this is an actual article from that magazine. So yeah, how do we get there? And what I did is I worked out a little process on how to get there. So the first step in this process was text alone is very abstract, maybe boring. So let's add some images if we have some images. Like imagine you have an interview, so you could put an image of the person you're interviewing next to it. Or you're writing about a place or a thing, you can just, you know what I mean, right? And then, of course, you structure it. So you take parts of the text and you cluster them and you add headlines and paragraphs, you mark it up. And after you did that, you can just take the content and remove everything that you don't need. So you can remove parts, you can allow white space, you can basically simplify it. And after that, you can rethink and think like, maybe some of the content parts, some of the content bits that I have, they don't need to be text. Like, can I replace something with an infographic? Can I replace something with a map? Can I visualize things? And then finally, tonality. So what is the text about? What should the text feel like? How can this be reflected in the actual layout, in the actual design of the article? And just by figuring out this editorial design process, I could get a bit closer to my goal of creating a magazine-like experience on the iPad just by following through these steps with almost every text that I had on there. All right, learning number 6, take them by the hand. So you can't rely on people just finding the right way through your digital experience, through your digital product. You need to guide them somehow. And a company that is really, really good at guiding people is actually this, is IKEA. So at IKEA, you would always start at a stage where you find this sample living room or where you find some kind of really cool setup and something that would inspire you of, oh yeah, I could probably decorate my living room like that. So this whole inspiration in the beginning of the experience is really important. But then when it comes down to making decisions, so which chair should I pick? People don't have to go through the whole setup of sample living rooms at IKEA. They will find this wall of chairs where you can compare them, where you can sit on them, where you can see, okay, this chair is a bit nicer, but this one is a bit more comfy. I don't know, which one should I take? And in the end, they let people touch the products and they let people grab them and carry them themselves. But not only that, they let people hack the products as well. They let the customers hack the IKEA experience by, for example, having very cheap replacement product at the end right in front of the cashiers. So after you selected like a stool, for example, that would be 30 bucks and you figured like, maybe the stool is too expensive, you will always find €5 stools right in front of the cashiers. Or the famous Fundgrube, where you can find that couch that has just a little stain on the inside for much, much cheaper. So you will get the feeling of, oh yeah, I hacked the experience, I stole something from them in a sense. And that is something that you can completely recreate in digital experiences. So this one, for example, is the homepage of Airbnb. If you just scroll a bit down, if you scroll past the search field, you will get this inspirational tiles here which ask you, maybe you want to join Torsten in his home, or maybe you want to enjoy the nightlife in Budapest. Who knows? So I get inspired for doing different trips. But then when it comes down to making the decision, should I book this Airbnb or should I not book it, they will provide me with all the information that I need. And this is not only the things that are available, but also the things that aren't. So I can see that, for example, I do not have a hot tub, that I do not have internet, and that I can't bring my dog to the Airbnb, which is really, really important to make the decision. Yeah, and the whole hacking part, this is a really cool example from an apparel shop called Agmonk, UG Monk. I have no idea how to pronounce them. What they do is, when you browse on their site and you just look a bit and then you decide like, yeah, maybe 80 bucks for a shirt is too expensive, and you decide to leave the page. So you actually move your mouse cursor out of the viewport. You will get this little pop-up, this exit intent pop-up, which tells you like, yeah, you get 15% off if you decide to buy something now. So people who would go there, who would experience that, would not only get these 15% off, which is really cool, but they would get the good feeling of like, oh yeah, I tricked them to give me 15% off. So they get the 15% that usual customers wouldn't get. And this gives people a really, really good feeling and actually some kind of reward. So let's talk about rewards. Who of you has a hot dog at IKEA after the shopping trip? Come on, you can be honest. Who of you actually goes to IKEA only for the hot dogs? You do? Really? Wow. Okay. That's very seldom. So actually the IKEA hot dog is, I mean, you can have better hot dogs, let's be honest. But it's a really, really great reward. After this 2-hour, 3-hour shopping spree where you ended up with much more candles and much more picture frames than you actually wanted to buy in the first place, you get this reward for this experience. And this is something that makes you come back. And yeah, this is learning number 7, reward users, reward them. This can be something simple like saying, hey, good job, well done, after they performed a specific action, like here on MailChimp after you successfully send off a campaign. Or this can be something like positive reinforcement in a place where people wouldn't expect it. So when you write something on Google Chat, whatever that is, I don't know. So this unexpected behavior. But also just simply saying thank you for sticking around, thank you for being part of my app, for using it for a certain time. And I mean, design can have an impact. That's what I'm trying to say here. So design can have an impact if you treat it broadly and if you treat it interdisciplinary. And if you look beyond the visuals and go into how do people interact with that and what do people need and feel. And design can really make a product irresistible, and it can change the way we use products. We just need to make sure how we use it and what we want to achieve with it and what we want to use it for. Thank you. Any questions? Yes?
I'm kind of a design skeptic.
Yes.
And when I see this, what I always think is, well, maybe it's all just wishful thinking. Maybe you like to make things colorful and beautiful and interesting, but maybe maybe companies would make the same amount of profit without your designs.
Yes.
How would you?
Yes, no, that's a very, very valid point. So I just have to repeat it for the microphone, for the camera. So what you're saying is you're a bit of a design skeptic, and you're wondering if design is not only more or less decorational, or if you could make the same amount of money without design behind it, right? And I totally agree, and I actually think that design in some cases can be harmful to the business. And the question is really, how do you treat design? Do you treat it as just like the visual layer, or as something that you want to have because it's cool, or is it something that you do in a way where you think with a business and with the question of what's a business case and what do I want to achieve in the back of your mind? And I think that is really important, and that is definitely something that that is a challenge for UX design in the years to come, and where we might have been as designers, or where we were too much maybe self-absorbed or too careless and just thinking in visual ways, and not seeing the whole picture. And I think we totally need to see the whole picture, and we need to see, on the one hand, what do people need, and also what does the business need in order to be successful. So I totally agree, yes.